Story time, and this is Kasha's story. So when Kasha was 20, she went to go work at her local convenience store in her small town. And because it was a small town, it usually felt safe because she knew most of the people, everyone knew everyone, the people who'd come to shop at the store were usually locals. So even when Kasha would work late at night alone, she felt safe in the store. But this one night when she was about to close, a man that she didn't recognize entered the store and went to the alcohol area and stood there for a while. So Kasha, who was about to close the store, was like, "Sir, come on." So she went up to the man and was like, "Hi, can I help you find something specific?" And the man looks at her and goes, "What do you like to drink?" And Kasha, who's 20 years old, says, "Oh, I'm underage, so I can't help you there. But if you're looking for something specific, I can point it out to you." And the man looks at her and goes, "I think I found what I'm looking for." So that obviously made Kasha feel very uncomfortable. Ooh, I have to do a part two. I'm sorry. Part two. So after the man said that to her, Kasha put up her hand and showed off an engagement ring and goes, "Oh, I'm already found," because she just wanted to end that conversation and she knew that saying that would probably close the topic. Keep in mind, Kasha wasn't engaged. She just wore a ring to work because men typically hit on her and she would use that as a way to get them to stop hitting on her. So Kasha then walked back to the register and waited for the man to come up with whatever he wanted to buy. And she grabbed a pepper spray that was by the counter because she started to feel very threatened by this man who was acting shady, to say the least. Eventually, the man came up to the register with a bottle of alcohol, and so she rings him up, and she goes, "I hope you have a good night." And the man looks at her and goes, "I think I will soon enough." And the man then walks out of the store. So Kasha, obviously, is feeling very scared. What did he mean by that? The man goes, sits in his car, and waits in the parking lot. I have to do part three. Part three. So the man is in his car in the parking lot, and Kasha is trapped inside the store. I mean, it's 1 a.m. No one's gonna come out this time. The store is supposed to be closed, and Kasha usually walks home at night. So clearly she can't do that because the man is in his car waiting. So she was literally stuck inside the store. So she considers her option. One option is sneak out from the back, try to jump a fence. Another option is to call her boyfriend, but those options don't work. So eventually she thinks, okay, I'm gonna turn off the lights and I'm gonna wait half an hour. And hopefully in that half hour, he'll be gone. So she does that, she waits, the man doesn't leave. So eventually she calls the cops and tells them what's happening, and the cops end up coming and talking to him, and Kasha watches from the window, and the cops end up arresting the guy. Then they come and take a statement from her, and they tell her, this man was just released from jail for sexual assault. So it's a good thing that Kasha called the cops. That's the end of Kasha's story. Story time, and this is Claire's story. I also have to give a trigger warning for sexual assault for this one. So, when Claire was in college, she got into a fight with her roommates one day, and that night she went to a party in the apartment building that was next to hers. Unfortunately, when she was at that party, she lost her keys. So when she went back to her building, she knocked on her door, hoping that her roommates, who she was in a fight with, would open the door. But they didn't. Luckily though, her neighbor Jack heard her knocking, so he opened his door and he was like, "How are you, okay?" And Claire explained the situation to him. Jack was really nice. He was like, "Well, you're welcome to stay on my couch if you want." And so Claire said yes. Jack wasn't a stranger. Claire knew him really well. Her and her roommates hung out with him all the time, so she felt safe enough to go there. When she was in his apartment, Jack was really, really nice. He ordered her some food. He made the sofa bed for her. Like, he was just honestly really nice about everything. I have to do part two. Part two, and trigger warning for sexual assault. So Jack actually also had his friend from home who was visiting him, who was staying with him. So Claire was going to have to share the living room with that friend. Claire fell asleep, and a little while after, she woke up with her pants off and something inside of her. She asked the friend what he was doing, and he told her to go back to sleep. She got up, went to Jack's room, locked the door, and slept on the floor. The next day, Claire told her roommates what happened, but they didn't believe her. And they kept hanging out with Jack, even when that friend was there. And eventually, they ended up exiling Claire from the group because she was problematic. There are a lot of things that Claire could raise awareness about in this video, but what she wants to raise awareness about is validating people's stories. A few years ago, sexual assault wasn't as talked about. I have to do a part three. Please listen to part three, it's important. Part three. So a few years ago, sexual assault wasn't as talked about, and it wasn't as understood. So a lot of people didn't believe some of these stories. So if you're one of those people who didn't believe someone's story back then, it's okay. But you know better now. So reach out to that person and validate their story. Even if what happened was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, even if you're friends now, even if it seems like all of you have moved on from it, Claire guarantees that that betrayal is still inside of them. So you reaching out and validating their story will do a lot. Story time! And this is actually my neighbor Lana's story. She lives right over there. So because of the pandemic, Lana went home for a few months, and she finally came back to London in March. But when she came back, the elevator in our building was unfortunately not working. Now, Lana and I live on the 4th floor, and she had 2 big suitcases with her, so she was struggling to bring up her suitcases. So Lana decided to ask the man who was living on the ground floor if he would help bring up her suitcases. So she knocked on his door, asked him for help, he said yes. The man brought up her suitcases, Lana said thank you, because, you know, it was a really nice thing to do, and she said goodbye. She thought that that was it, that was the end of their interaction. It wasn't. A few minutes after he helped her, Lana suddenly received friend requests on Instagram and on other social media platforms from that man. Now, we have a communal mail area, which means that downstairs there's a table and everyone's mail is on that table, and you just pick up your mail if it's for you. That man must have gone through that mail to find her name, found her on Instagram, and added her. I have to do a part 2. Part 2. So after he added her on Instagram, he messaged her. Then Lana messaged back saying, "Thank you again so much for having helped me today." But then the guy messaged her again, and again and again and again and again, and he wouldn't stop messaging her. And his messages would say, "I think I deserve a coffee because I helped you with your suitcases. We should go get coffee." Or, "You owe me dinner because I helped you with your suitcases." Lana started to feel incredibly uncomfortable. She just asked this guy for a favor. She didn't know that she would owe him a date because of it. I mean, what if Lana was actually an 80-year-old man, not a 23-year-old girl? Would that 35-year-old guy then have asked the 80-year-old man for dinner or for coffee? No. The only reason why Lana is being harassed is because she's a woman. If you help a woman, you're not owed a date. A simple thank you should be enough. I mean, Lana now feels incredibly uncomfortable in our building. Whenever she passes in front of that guy's flat, she walks really fast because she's scared to bump into him. Story time. So my high school used to organize these school trips, and there was a list of places you could choose to go to. And the list was amazing. It was like, go to Italy and learn how to cook fresh pasta, or go to the south of France, learn how to scuba dive, or go to Morocco. Honestly, the list was insane. But one of the things on the list was go to a survival camp in Scotland. For some reason, my friends and I chose that one. Not the south of France, not Italy, not Morocco. Survival camp in Scotland in October. So we're 15 years old and we're off to Scotland. It was like an 8-hour journey. We arrive, it's 6 p.m., 7 p.m. So we settle in, we have dinner, and after dinner we're like, okay, we're probably going to go to sleep, and survival is going to start tomorrow since it's 10 p.m. and this is a school trip. No. After dinner, the organizer comes up and goes, "Everybody, put on some shorts, we're going for a run." So we are now running through a forest at 10 p.m. It's raining, it's 4 degrees. I have to do a part 2. Part 2. So we're running through the forest. We don't know where we're going. We don't know how long the run is going to last for. Let me just show you a picture. 1 second. That's me on the run. And that's me from the back. So we're running, and eventually we arrive at this giant lake. And the organizer goes, "Jump in and swim across it." It's freezing. We are in our clothes. But so we jump in. We swim across it, except it wasn't really swimming. My legs were numb. It was more of a trying to get to the other side. So eventually we get to the other side, and then we had to run back to our lodging, soaking wet. Let me show you some more pictures. That's me after the lake. I'm smiling, but I was crying inside. That's us on our run back. That's me over there, right there. And that was the first evening of our survival camp. We were there for 5 days. Usually my stories raise some sort of awareness. This one doesn't at all. It's just a story that I want to share because it just makes me laugh. Story time. So right before the pandemic happened, I bought this thing from a souvenir shop, and on my way home, a piece of it broke. So I was like, I'll just go back to the store and hopefully they have a replacement piece, because the piece that broke was kind of separate. So I go back to the store, I asked the guy if he had a replacement piece, and he goes, "Yeah, we do. Here it is. It'll be 20 pounds. And I was like, oh wow, that's pretty expensive because the entire object was 30 pounds. I can't afford to pay 20 pounds for this. Never mind. Thank you so much. Have a good night. And then he was like, no, wait. How much would you pay for it? And I was like, honestly, I don't know, because I don't know how much it sells for, so I don't know what price to give you. And he goes, no, give me a price. And I was like, sir, I can't give you a price because I don't know. I don't want to give you a price that's too high or a price that's too low because I really don't know how much it sells for. And he was like, give me a price. And I was like, sir, I really don't know. And he was like, 18 pounds? And I was like, that still seems a bit expensive for me to be able to afford. Honestly, it's fine. I'll just go home. I have to do part 2. Part 2. So he was like, 18 pounds is too much? Well, then how much would you pay? And the guy kept hassling me for a price. Honestly, he was being really aggressive. Like, it wasn't one of those, how much would you pay? No, it was like, give me a price right now. So I was getting kind of freaked out and like uncomfortable. So then I told him, I was like, sir, I'll go home, I'll look online, I'll see how much that usually sells for, and I'll come back here and I'll give you a price when I know better. And I had the object in my hand, and he grabs it out of my hand, and he goes, if you're not gonna pay for this right now, then get out of my store and don't come back. And I was like, okay, I'm sorry. And then I walked out. But so that was a pretty scary encounter with a guy in a store because I couldn't give him a price.